It is 6 o'clock and time for our next Parent Academy presentation. So, good evening, Rock Hill. We're so glad that you have joined us. My name is Dr. Nancy Turner, and I am your Director of Behavioral and Mental Health for our Rock Hill schools. We also have our co-host with us tonight. Good evening, Cindy.
Good evening, Dr. Turner, and good evening, Rock Hill. As Dr. Turner said, my name is Cindy Talbot-Kimmel. I'm the Director of ParentSmart, Rock Hill Schools Parent Education Partnership, where parents are at the heart of education.
Thank you, Cindy. We're always so glad you join us. Tonight, our presentation will focus on a way to start a conversation about mental health, as well as finding resources that are available to you in Rock Hill and beyond. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, is a nationwide mental health organization, but did you know that we have a NAMI Piedmont Tri-County in Rock Hill? Well, tonight, you are going to hear all about it from one of our NAMI experts, Miss Kate Brunelson. I'm going to say that, Brunelson. And let me tell you a little bit about Kate. Kate brings over 8 years of nonprofit leadership experience to the York County Outreach Coordinator position. She is a dedicated advocate, raising awareness and educating the community about mental health and suicide prevention throughout York County. Additionally, Kate serves on the South Carolina Chapter Board of Directors with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Please welcome Kate Brunelson.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Turner, for having me, and Cindy as well. It's exciting to be here with you all. I appreciate it. Tonight, we are going to talk about mental health and wellness and how those two work together. Again, my name is Kate. I'm with NAMI Piedmont Tri-County right here in Rock Hill. We have our drop-in center called The Hut right next to Winthrop University. So you can drop in and see us and get some resources and just get some support. And we'll go over that a little bit at the end of today's presentation. So I am going to share my screen and we are going to get started. See if I do this right. Technology isn't my first forte. So let's see. I think we did it. Okay. So this is what we're going to talk about this evening. We're going to talk about who exactly we are at NAMI. We're going to talk about what mental health is. We're going to share some statistics and warning signs that we can look for in ourselves and in our children. We're going to talk about asking for help because that is an important one. We're going to cover some suicide and mental health related information. We're going to talk about recovery because recovery from a mental health condition is absolutely possible. And then we're also going to share some great support resources that we have for you right here in the community. So who is NAMI exactly? NAMI, like Dr. Turner said, is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are part of the Rock Hill, so we're part of the Piedmont Tri-County. And our mission is really just to educate, advocate, and support those living in our community who either have a mental health condition, we're here for their family members as well. And really, we want to provide that same support and advocacy for our community because we all have the ability to support those living with a mental health condition. Now, when we talk about mental health conditions, you might be thinking to yourself, what exactly is she talking about? There are a lot of mental health conditions that a person can live with, as you can see here. Some of the more common ones that we hear about, probably the most often, would be things like an anxiety disorder, ADD, ADHD, depression is certainly a common one, eating disorders. Some less common ones that you might hear us talk about would be post-traumatic stress, although that one's pretty common. There is also a complex post-traumatic stress disorder, things like borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, those types of things. All of these things make up a mental health condition. And when we talk about mental health conditions tonight, we're really just talking about all of them as a whole. Some other information that's important for you to know and for all of us to be aware of is what mental health conditions exactly are and what they are not. So we've learned the words, right? But what exactly are they? Mental health conditions are medical illnesses. They are similar to a physical illness. Just like you would get treatment if you had a heart condition or heart disease, you would need to get medical treatment to assist with a mental health condition. They do alter the way that people think, behave, and our emotions. but they are super common and they are very much treatable. So again, you just have to get that help. You have to go see your physician or a counselor. Mental health conditions to this day are still very highly stigmatized. And sometimes when we talk about them, we're quick to self-diagnose each other, and we don't want to do that. So they do require medical diagnoses. What mental health conditions are not is they're not anybody's fault. Nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks to themselves, I really would like to be depressed today, or I really wish I had a panic attack on my way to work. That is not how that works. They are not somebody's fault. So they're nothing to be ashamed of. If you live with a mental health condition, just know that it's not your fault and there's nothing to be ashamed of. And they're not anything that you can just snap out of. Again, most mental health conditions do require medical treatment to get better. So you can't just wake up and be like, oh, my depression is gone today, or my anxiety is gone, I'm all better. I wish it worked like that, but it's not quite that easy. So they're also not the same for everybody. I may live with a mental health condition and you may live with that same mental health condition, but our experiences are not going to be the same. The way that it interacts with our body is very different. Just like people have different levels of heart disease or diabetes, it's not a one size fits all. Everybody's condition is different. So understanding some numbers as we move forward, 1 in 5 adults will experience a mental health condition per year, and 1 in 6 youth. Now, when we talk about youth in these numbers, we're talking about the age range of 6 to 17. So 1 in 6 of our youth will experience a mental health condition. Now, you personally might not be that 1 in 5 adult, and you might not be or have that 1 in 6 youth in your home, but you all have the power to support those individuals. Post-pandemic, we're seeing that numbers are closer to 1 in 3 people had reported a mental health condition, and 1 in 20 US adults experienced a serious mental health illness each year. And when we talk about the serious mental health illness, we're talking about things more like the bipolar or the schizophrenia or the complex PTSD. We also know that suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34 here in South Carolina, and it is also the 12th leading cause of death statewide. We are going to talk a little bit about suicide here because it is important to talk about. And when we talk about suicide, it's important to know that the way we talk about suicide is just as important as bringing up the conversation. There was a time when all of us would say, I myself would say it all the time, that somebody committed suicide. And that word just doesn't really feel good, right? Like it kind of feels like a negative tone. You commit a crime, you don't commit an illness. We don't say that people commit cancer. We don't say that people commit heart disease. So when we talk about suicide, we want to put that on par with physical health. Nobody committed suicide. They died by suicide. So if you lose somebody to suicide, it's okay to say that they died by suicide or they passed by suicide. We do know that suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the US, which makes it more common than loss to homicide. Again, it's the 3rd leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-olds and for 10 to 14-year-olds. Here in South Carolina, it is the 12th leading cause of death. And we've learned through research that 90% of those who die by suicide had 1 or more diagnosable mental health conditions at the time of their death. Now, these people may have been aware that they had the condition, or they were not aware. They may have been taking medication, they may have not been, but typically there was a mental health condition at the time of the death. We've learned that from the onset of somebody's mental health condition symptoms, it can take an average of 8 to 11 years for somebody to seek treatment or to seek help for that. Now, that seems like a really long time, right? Imagine if you or your child had strep throat. You started showing symptoms of strep throat and you ignored that for 8 to 11 years. Imagine what that would do to your body over time, right? You would probably start to develop some secondary symptoms, some secondary infections. Your body would be exhausted. You would be tired from being unwell for such a long period of time. You might start to get lashing out at people. You might start to withdraw. You might start to just kind of keep yourself inside because you're constantly in pain. The same goes for mental health, right? When we are waiting 8 to 11 years to get help for our mental health symptoms, a lot of things can happen in that time span. We can develop some secondary symptoms. We can develop some other behaviors. Maybe we start to withdraw. Maybe we start to stay inside more because we're overwhelmed. It's a lot to carry all that around for such a long time. And then our symptoms, just like if we left strep throat untreated for 8 to 11 years, could be life-threatening. 8 to 11 years could be life-threatening for a mental health condition if left untreated. We've learned that 50% of youth and adolescents will not even seek help. And that's an alarming number when you think about that. And so when we look at the reasons why they're not seeking help, we're learning that a lot of it boils down to stigma. Now, stigma is, by definition, a negative association to something. And I can think of few things more stigmatized, right, than mental health. And certainly that has stood the test of time for stigma to be this dark cloud over mental health. Stigma really prevents people from seeking the help and receiving the help that they need and the help that they deserve. When I grew up, now I'm in my 40s, so I grew up a while ago, we didn't talk about mental health at all, not even a little bit. And as somebody who grew up living with social anxiety, stigma really affected my ability to get help. And it affected my ability to understand that there wasn't really something wrong with me. It was just my brain worked differently. So part of what we do at NAMI is we work really hard to break down that stigma around mental health and start to have open conversations so that our kids can know that they can get help when they need it. And they can tell us when they aren't feeling well. So just like that sore throat, they say, oh, Mom, my throat is really sore today. I think I need the day off. We want our kids to be comfortable coming to us and saying, man, my life just hurts today. I really need some help. Even us adults who grew up at a time when we didn't talk about mental health, as we work towards breaking down the stigma, some of us might see that perhaps we've been living with a mental health condition that we weren't aware of for a long time. So we're working really hard to break down stigma. We need everybody's help in that. We need open, honest conversations about mental health. Now, we've shared a lot about numbers and statistics and information. We're going to look at some things that we can start to keep an eye out for. Now, teenagers and youth experience many things in their life that can cause them to feel upset and withdrawn, right? And that behavior can last for a few days. So things like a breakup, maybe they didn't make a team they were really hoping to, or they failed that big test and they're worried somebody's going to be disappointed. I mean, and really just being a teenager is a lot, right? You could not pay me enough money to go back to high school. But if we notice our teenagers or our kids, or even somebody that we care about, having symptoms that are pretty uncharacteristic of themselves for 2 or more weeks, it's time that we start a conversation with them. So some things that we can watch for would be things like impulsive behaviors or being more irritated than usual. Sometimes teens are just irritated, but more irritated than usual. If they're talking about their feelings in a way of loneliness or despair, maybe they're having some excessive worry, trouble concentrating, substance misuse. They're not functioning like their usual selves. So you're noticing changes in their normal habits. Maybe how they dress is different. Their appearance is different. They're eating more or less, sleeping more or less. Those are all things that we want to watch for if they're lasting for 2 weeks or longer. And trust your gut, right? If you see something or you notice something or something just doesn't feel right, talk about it. Talk about it. I cannot stress that enough. And how we talk about it is just as important as talking about it. When our kids come to us, we want to be open and we want to listen to them. As adults, I know that when our teenagers might come to us and they're like, oh, I'm so stressed out, I'm so depressed. Sometimes our initial action might be like, well, what do you have to be depressed about? Wait till you get older. I'll show you something to be depressed about. Here's all these bills, or here's the house payment, right? We have a lot of things. But it's really important for us as parents not to do that, because it's like slamming the door right in their face just as they opened it up to us. We have to look at life from their lens. And kids really do have a lot of stress. It's not the same stress that we have as adults, but it is their life and it is their stress. So they have pressure from school. Maybe they're involved in sports. They have social media, which I did not have as a kid, thank goodness, because I think that's just a whole nother level of stress in their lives. Maybe they carry kind of a heavier role within their family. So it's not, again, the stress and pressure that we're used to, but if they're coming to you and they're opening that door to talk to you, just let them talk about it and hear what their stress and pressure looks like. And, just try to relate, just let them talk and don't discredit what they're feeling or what they're thinking. And we talked a little bit earlier about suicide, but these are some of the signs that somebody could be thinking about or planning suicide. They might be talking about it, they might be writing about it, drawing about it in a journal, talking about having no reason to live, being a burden, saying goodbye in different ways. So for instance, maybe, oh, it won't matter, I won't be here tomorrow, or you won't have to worry about me in that situation. Feelings of hopelessness, desperate, feeling trapped, carrying feelings of worthlessness or shame if they're starting to isolate, giving away their possessions. And one that we've recently learned is among teens is that giving away their social media passwords. Now, as a mom of a teen, there is nothing more that my child would do than to keep me off of his social media, right? So if somebody is all of a sudden willing to give you their social media passwords, it could indicate that there's something going on. If we're noticing reckless behavior and looking for ways to attempt suicide. You know your people the best, right? You know your kids know their friends the best. You know your kids the best. You know your friends the best. So if you see something or something just doesn't feel right or it seems off, ask them, ask them, ask them, ask them. And these are just some common characteristics. Now, my baseline as an adult is probably pretty classic. I'm a very introverted person. I'm happy in comfy clothes. I don't really go out much. I'm not on huge social media. So if all of a sudden I turn around and I'm dressed to the nines, I'm dressed up super fancy, I'm going out clubbing, I'm on Snapchat and Instagram and doing all that stuff, somebody should check in on me because that is completely uncharacteristic of who I am and what I do. So my baseline might be different than, these common signs. So again, know your people, you know them well. If you suspect something is off or you notice something doesn't seem right, it's okay to have that conversation with them. Just check in on them and see how they're doing. And it's okay to ask. Despite common myths, you are not going to put the idea in somebody's head to think about suicide if you ask them if they're thinking about suicide. It's really the opposite. If you ask somebody if they're thinking about suicide and they're not, it might be a wake-up call for them. Sometimes people with their mental health, you kind of like that descent when you're walking downwards, you don't really realize that you're walking down, right? So somebody who's having a hard time with their mental health, they might not be aware of how much they've changed or how far down in their illness they've descended. So when they hear, are you thinking of suicide? It might be a good wake-up call for them that, oh, whoa, what's happening? Where are we? How did we get here? And it might give them, the opportunity to have that conversation with you and to get some help. So always ask if you're thinking that there's something going on with somebody you care about. And it is best to ask directly. I know that it can feel hard, but if you've never asked somebody out loud, I encourage you to practice it. Those 5 little words, are you thinking about suicide, are very powerful. And they can be scary the first time you say them, right? So practice getting used to saying them out loud so that you feel confident in a crisis situation if you need to use them. You don't want the first time you say them to be like, are you blah, 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 and you trip over your words and you stumble over them because it's hard to say. So I would definitely practice saying that. And you always want to ask somebody directly if they're thinking about suicide. You don't want to say, are you thinking of doing something stupid? Or you're not thinking of hurting yourself, are you? Because those can give you some answers that you might not be anticipating. Somebody who's suicidal is looking for a way to feel better. So if you're asking them if they're thinking of hurting themselves, they're probably not viewing it the same way you're viewing it. And if you're thinking of doing something stupid, sometimes we say that because we're uncomfortable talking about suicide. It doesn't give them the opportunity to share what they're really thinking. And for somebody who's in a situation, in a crisis situation, you might not get the answer that you're looking for. So we always want to ask directly. And it's okay to ask somebody if they have a plan. And the reason that we want to ask somebody if they do have a plan, if they are thinking about suicide, is it gives us an opportunity to intervene. If somebody has not yet made a plan, we know that we have a little bit more time. We can get these crisis intervention services going. We can get them some help, and we can hopefully get them to safety. If they do have a plan, that information is just as important for us to know so that we can relay that to either the mobile crisis unit or to their care team, to their safety planners, or to whoever is coming in to help intervene in the situation. So if if somebody is suicidal and they do have a plan, you want to share that information with whoever you are doing the intervention with, probably mobile crisis or 911. And we'll talk about those resources certainly a little bit more at the end of the presentation today. You also don't want to leave somebody alone. If somebody is suicidal, you probably should not leave them alone unless safety becomes a concern. Oh, I'm sorry. I lost my ears. Unless safety becomes a concern for you, you definitely want to keep yourself safe. In a situation for that, you can call 911 and ask for a CIT officer. If you're not familiar with the CIT officer, it is a crisis intervention team. So these officers have been trained in 35 hours of crisis intervention training. So they take this extra time to learn how to help somebody navigate through a crisis safely. So we're so proud of the officers, and we really appreciate them taking this extra training to make sure that we keep our people safe in a mental health crisis. We talked a lot about what we can do, what we can watch for, how to ask somebody if they're thinking about suicide. So now what, right? Now what do you do? So you've made the ask, or you have somebody who's in a mental health crisis. Who can you turn to for help? There's a lot of great resources out there. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 988. It's a nice short number now, just on par with 911. It's nice and easy to remember. And this number is really great because you don't have to be in a crisis to call it. In fact, it's really helpful to call it before a crisis happens. So if your child or yourself or somebody you know is just having a hard time and you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know who to talk to, you can call 988 and they are trained and they give you some great support. You can just talk to them about the situation you're in, get some support, get some guidance, and then get some follow-up resources to put into use. So 988 is great. If you have teens, I recommend that you make your teens aware of the phone number, program it in their phone, let them know that it's there, because they might not want to talk to us, right? As much as we love our kids and we hope that they'll come to us if there's a problem, we might not be their person. And that's okay. We want them to talk to somebody. So if they can call 988 and get some guidance and some support and some resources, then it's good for them to have that number. So I program it in my kids' phones so they have it. In addition, they can call if they're concerned about a friend, or you can call if you're concerned about a friend. It doesn't have to be you. You can call to get advice in a situation. I mentioned the mobile crisis unit. They're really an amazing team of people, and they can help navigate through a crisis situation. A lot of times they'll try to help you de-escalate over the phone. But if the situation warrants, they will send one of their teams out and they can help, try to de-escalate a crisis situation right there. And their goal is to keep everybody at home and keep everybody safe. There's also the crisis text line, because kids probably don't like to talk on the phone anymore. And so sometimes people are just more comfortable using a text line. So the crisis text line works the same as the hotline, this National Suicide Hotline. They're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call it and just be able to talk to somebody and get some support. We also have a NAMI text line. You can text that. That is a great resource for people who are living with a mental health condition, to just be able to talk to another person who lives with a mental health condition, get resources, support, guidance. A lot of times they'll try to help filter them back to their local NAMI so they can plug into the resources that we have. In an emergency, if you're like, I don't remember a thing that woman told me, always call 911. And just be sure to let them know that it is a mental health emergency. You can also go to the emergency room, obviously, in an emergency. NAMI, if you did not know, has a free resource app. It is free to download. My executive director, Robert, that's for you. I put this slide in because I know you love it. But it is a great resource for everybody to have. And I'm going to talk, the QR codes should be usable. You should be able to use them right from your screen today if you want to download it. The top one is for Android and the bottom one is for Apple users. But the resource app, you can download it, and it has resources for all of South Carolina. So you can get help in Rock Hill, Fort Mill, York, Clover, Sumter, Upstate, Greenville. You can pool resources from anywhere in South Carolina. And it's not just mental health resources. We know that mental health comes with a lot of different aspects of health, right, overall. So if you're looking for housing, or if you are looking for food or shelter or a counselor, just a ton of resources. And this was a great collaboration with the Department of Mental Health and NAMI Piedmont Tri-County to make this app come together for our community. So again, you can scan those QR codes and I can send them. My contact information is here at the end, and if you don't get them. So positive coping strategies, we know what to watch for. We know some immediate support systems when our child or ourselves or somebody we love is experiencing some changes with their mental health. But then what, right? I honestly believe that we should be born with a pediatrician and a counselor at birth, right? We establish these healthy baselines. We should establish our mental health as well. But until I rule the world, that's probably not going to happen. So in the meantime, some things that we can do in between are medication and therapy are a great tool and resource for somebody living with a mental health condition. People take medication for diabetes, they take medication to keep their heart disease or their heart and their blood pressure under control. There is nothing wrong with either one of those. And with those, it's important to note that those are not a one size fits all, right? Something that works for me isn't going to work for some of you, or it's not going to work for my children. So be sure that you're tweaking it as necessary. If you've noticed that you're taking medication and it's just not working right, or it's making symptoms worse, or you're noticing that the medication is making your child worse, their symptoms worse, reach out to your physician, reach out to the doctor who prescribed it, and let them know that you're experiencing that. Don't sit and wait, reach out as soon as you can. Likewise, if you're in therapy and your therapist and you don't click, it's probably time to find a new therapist. Therapists are not one size fits all. We're coming to therapy to talk about a lot of hard things potentially. So if we're not clicking with that person, we're not going to get anything out of it. It is not going to be useful to us. And the same for your kids. Now, I know some kids will say, oh, I don't like this therapist. I think I need a new one, maybe to try to get out of it, right? But we have to give them the benefit of the doubt, at least the first time, and let them try to find somebody that they connect with. It's hard for kids to open up. It's difficult for kids to talk about mental health and hard things in general. It's hard for adults to do it. So we want to make sure that our kids are in an environment where they feel supported, they feel safe, and they feel like they can open up and really talk to this person. So again, counselors are not a one size fits all, and be willing to try to navigate. I would caution, don't just stop seeing a counselor without maybe finding a backup one first. If you've navigated that world, you know that appointments are few and far between sometimes. So I would make sure you have a backup plan first. And then we have some additional resources, parent-teacher support groups. And we're going to talk about what we offer with NAMI here in just a moment. Maybe finding school activities, a club, something healthy to plug into, or educating yourself, getting more knowledgeable about mental health conditions and how you can move forward with them is always a good, positive way to channel your energy. Some people love support groups. If you love support groups, you will love NAMI. We have lots of support groups. And our support groups, some are virtual, some meet in person. They meet on all different days of the week. So you can find our full calendar at namipiedmont.org, or you can call me at the 803-610-8174, and I will help you find and get plugged into a support group that fits your needs. But we do have an autism social support group. We have a connections group, which is for, we have one for young adults, which is 18 to 29-year-olds living with a mental health condition. And then we also have one for older adults living with a mental health condition. That's my wheelhouse. When I say older adults, it's not that way. It's 29 and older. We also have a family support group. We have a parent and caregiver support group. We have a great teen support group where teens 13 to 17 can come out and just be with each other. And when we talk about support groups, every support group works and looks different. Sometimes they're playing games, sometimes they're playing video games. So, there's lots for them to do and plug into. And then we also have a suicide loss survivor support group for those who have lost a loved one to suicide. Now, maybe support groups aren't your thing. Maybe you're like an education person, you like to get knowledge. We have our NAMI Basics. We have a few courses, one of which is our NAMI Basics course. And this is for parents and children with emotional and behavioral mental health concerns. It is a 6-week course, and you will learn all kinds of wonderful information and tools about navigating this new diagnosis with your child. We do have one shameless plug coming up on February 20th. It will be at Oakland Baptist Church in Rock Hill. It's meeting from 6:15 to 8:45. And the incredible folks over at Oakland Baptist are providing childcare for this course, because we know that, not having childcare can really be a barrier to getting help. So childcare will be provided. You can register at namipiedmont.org, or again, you can just call me and I will help plug you in. My number is there at the bottom. But this is a great course. We also have a family-to-family course that is on the docket to coming up. We're just working out a date. This is for caregivers and family members of adults who live with a mental health condition. Again, it's a 6-week course. There is no cost. There is never a cost to anything that we do with NAMI. And it just kind of helps you understand what it's like to live with an adult with mental health conditions. Certainly, navigating disability, insurance, understanding how to communicate, and best practices and strategies for that. So another great course. If you're interested, again, you can call me and we'll get you on the wait list for this one. Now, we've talked about a lot of things, and I think one of the most important things that we can do is being present. But this also means being present to yourself as a parent, right? As an individual. Being a parent is hard, and most parents, myself included, we usually tend to put ourselves last, right? And now, especially if we have, a child living with a mental health condition, we really probably put ourselves on the back burner. We stretch ourselves super thin when we should rest. We worry if we're doing it right. We are constantly critical, right, on ourselves of how we're doing it, what we should be doing. We're filling our head and our hearts just with negativity daily. And we shouldn't do that as parents, right? Could you imagine if we talked to our kids sometimes the way that we talk to ourselves? Or if we talk to our best friend, or we talked to our, brother or our sister or a loved one, the way that we speak to ourselves. So parents, tonight, here, today, you have to stop doing that. Give yourself some grace. Extend it. You extend it daily. You extend it to your kids. You extend it to people that you interact with all throughout your day. So extend it to yourself too. Parenting is hard, and none of us have it all together. We certainly don't have it all right. And just because, I work for NAMI for a living certainly doesn't mean that I have it all together or I have all the answers either, right? None of us do. So when we're talking about being present, this one is for you. Be present for yourself. Make some time for you. And I know that that's difficult right now. It's, it's 6:30, dinner's boiling away on the back burner. Kids have homework. They need baths. They need this, they need that. But you need time for you as well. Now, I love all of these ideas. I think they're beautiful. I think they're great. Especially if you want to volunteer. We love volunteers at NAMI. But for me, honestly, what gets me is a plate of cheese and crackers and some really bad reality TV. At the end of the day, when the kids are gone, they're going to bed, they're, doing their things. That is my time to just, shut my brain off, do something good for me. So whatever you do at the end of the day, maybe, 90 Day Fiance isn't your thing. That's okay. But whatever you do at the end of the day, make sure you please take some time out for yourselves, because you're deserving and you really need it too. And your cup needs to be full before you can fill everybody else's cups. How many times have we heard that, right? But it's true. So I think I probably talked a little faster than I should have. I apologize. But thank you for joining us. We really are all in this together. NAMI is here. I'm here to support you. My information is there. So if you have questions once we wrap up and you're like, I don't remember what she said, feel free to reach out to us. We'll help plug you into a support group. We'll help get you the resources that you need, or just talk with you and kind of figure out what it is that you're looking for and how we can help you. So thank you so much. And I think that's it.
Well, and thank you so much. The information that you have offered us tonight may seem basic, but it's information that our parents, our grandparents, all of our guardians, they need to know, they need to hear it. more than once. And as you say, if they only caught a few seconds of this, or if they said, "Oh, I won't remember all of this," well, certainly your website and your information, but we have just recorded your Parent Academy actually forever because it will be
Great.
archived. It's in the archive now on our Parent Academy Facebook page as well as on the Rock Hill YouTube. So you can certainly go there. I really appreciated that you talked about not your children or your young adults. This is something that we try and let our parents know all the time. If you see a few signs, if you're concerned, your kids, your young adults, even your kids in elementary, something's not right. You've known them all their life, and something is just not right. Like you say, they've changed in some way, and it might be subtle changes. It's okay. We don't have to wait for a crisis. We should not wait for a meltdown. We shouldn't wait for severe signs. I will say if your children and young adults are in the Rock Hill schools, go through the school counselor. All you have to do is contact the school counselor, and the school counselor will walk you through the process. We have mental health therapists, both Rock Hill Schools therapists, and we are contracting with the Stepping Stone Group, so we have site-based therapists. And if for some reason this is not what a parent wants, we have other resources. We always have NAMI. You and the agency and Robert and our NAMI Tri-County staff, it's amazing what you have offered, and it grows and grows each time. I'm sorry I keep talking, but it's just so exciting that the agency and all that you have to offer is right here in our backyard. I have to say that when you started the teen support group, that was just, I had parents go, "Oh, thank you," 13 to 17 years old. And I do know students who are going, and they feel better. They come to school the next day. They seem less anxious. They've made friends. They've met others who are feeling the same way they feel.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
a
again,
great group.
it's great. Cindy?
I was just going to say that aside from all the information that you shared, very, very simple factual for parents to understand. And the other thing about asking direct questions, we all tend to hide and we all tend to sugarcoat and whatever. And sometimes you do have to ask those hard questions and not to be afraid to ask that of your child because hopefully you'll be able to get them the help that they need. I did put the suicide crisis hotline in the chat as well as the your website. I'm sorry, your namipiedmont.org and then your contact number.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So, and Dr. Turner, if you want to give the Rock Hill Schools hotline.
I sure will. I'll do that right now. Um, I'm just reminding everyone that we do have a Rock Hill Mental Health Resource Line. It is recorded information, but it is great information. 803-324-7464. 803-324-7464. And between NAMI and the hotline, there's no reason not to get help. Really bottom line, and I know that this was the main focus, is be present and talk about it. Just start the conversation. Put down the screens, the phones, look your children in the eye. They're beautiful children and young adults, and start talking. Now, I do want to bring up something that even today, there was a case of a young girl, a teenager, who was cutting. And another time we can do a whole series or a whole session on cutting. But all of a sudden she started wearing long sleeves and talking to the parent after we noticed this. So here was a change that the parent did not know she was cutting, but I just asked, had you seen a change in anything? And the change was how she was dressing. And although it's been cool and we wear long sleeves, she said even when they went to different athletics where you would normally wear a t-shirt, she was wearing something different. So parents, you notice these things, say something, talk about it. Kate?
Absolutely. Yes. And, even at the end of the day, if there was nothing wrong, right? If we ask somebody, hey, I've noticed this, is everything okay? If they say, no, it's fine. I mean, really, is it fine? Feel free to ask them more than once, right? Getting information from our youth is not always super easy sometimes. But if they're not, if something isn't wrong, that's okay too. At least now they know that that conversation has been started. They know that they can talk to you in the future if something comes up. They know that you're willing to have those conversations, that you're paying attention, that you're seeing them. And we all like to feel valued and understood. So I think that even if you are nervous that maybe there's not something I don't want to, rattle the cage, rattle it and ask them, and then they'll know in the future that, hey, I probably can go talk to my mom about this. She seems like she'll be open to it, or dad or parent or whoever's in the home.
Sure, absolutely. Cindy, anything else before we close?
No, that's all. Thank you.
All right. Well, Kate, I thank you. What a beautiful job you have done. And I will mention that although Robert was going to join us and he is under the weather, you did awesome and
Thank
gave
you.
all the information that we needed to know. There's no question that you are a professional and a wealth of information and just so approachable. Just so personable and approachable. I can see why you are in this job.
Yeah.
So we thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your wealth of resources and opportunities to connect, and they just keep growing and growing. So we hope that our viewers will check your websites and look into this. We thank our viewers for taking the time tonight to learn more. Um, but it is up to all of us, each of us on the screen and in the viewership, to reduce the stigma by just talking about it. I did want to mention to our viewers as well that starting next Thursday, we're going to move this time slot for Parent Academy to 5:30. We constantly look at all the stats and the data and the demographics, and I'm learning how to do that too. It's really fascinating. And we're seeing that maybe a 5:30 to 6:30 slot might be better to get more viewers in. So we'll send out reminders for next Thursday, but 5:30, we will be on next Thursday. And thank you again. Thank you, Kate Brennelson. Thank you, Cindy, for joining us. Um, and I thank you all for tuning in every Thursday. Please take care of yourself, and we will see you next week. Have a wonderful night and stay well. Good night, everyone.